O Marcus, o Vitial, Shadbolt, Glenor, Kaupapa, Kaupapa, on my mother's side, I'm Kaupapa to most of the North Island, I think, at this point. Ngāti Kahungunu, Ki Wairarapa, just north of Wellington, Te Aroa around the Rotorua area, Ngāti Kiaroa, and Ngāti Parau. Te Taho Papa on my father's side, I whakapapa Kaitahu down here in Wairaki, which is also where I live at the moment, and Otetahi, so mainly Kaitahu. Just an acknowledgement to Aboriginal whānau here, and acknowledging all your elders, past, current, and emerging, and that mana and Māori that you bring to these conversations as well. So, kia ora. I work for a Māori environmental NGO called Te Tira Whakamātaki. We started out as the host of the Māori Biosecurity Network. I'm aware that this is the very last talk of the conference, and that I don't think there's anything new to be said about Myrtle that hasn't already been said in these last 2 days. And there also probably isn't much to be said about seeding after the fantastic work that this afternoon. So I'm going to try to talk more about the protocol space and about ethical and culturally appropriate ways for working with seeds and from a Te Tira Whakamātaki perspective. So all of this protocol is based around conversations we've had with our kaumātua, our elders spread across the country, and with all the other communities that we work in. It's not representative of all Māori, and it's certainly not representative of how all Indigenous peoples would like to be engaged with, but it gives an idea of how that might go. So I'll talk a little bit about who Te Tira Whakamātaki are first, just to give you context on the sort of work we do and the people we work with, for those of you who don't know who we are. We have primarily 3-4 work programs that we work under. One of them, those is seed banking, which I'll be talking about today. We also have another new program called Tono, which is a Māori disaster response network that has just started up these last few months. We also have, like I said, our biosecurity network, and that came directly out of the response, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. And we also have another program, our Research and Ethics Council, TCO. I don't know who that actually sits on as well, so Canada. We do kind of everything. When you're in the Māori space in Aotearoa, you do just wind up working in everything and jumping around every possible discipline and scenario you can imagine. Our work has been with seed. In the middle there is a photo of one of our most recent seed trainings run by Te Aroha Drummond from Te Aroha. We also work in the UN space. We attended the Disaster Risk Reduction UN Symposium in Bali a number of years ago. We work with our up in iwi, so we've got another photo here of some work we've done with Ngāti Tōrangatira around their disaster preparation and response. We also run a program recently called Kurereo Tile, so that is a immersion language course focused on the environment. So as our te reo has been revitalised, there has been this disconnection to the environmental origins of that reo, and this program is about reconnecting the reo, the language, back to the land. We also have been working in the genetic space, so we recently published a report just on our website on Māori perspectives on gene and synthetic technologies, and a whole lot of other work across the wider Indigenous space. More recently, and what some of you might know us from, is we held an event in Connecting Wellington for restoring the possum, where we had several of our Aboriginal whānau we've been working with come over to talk about possum management here, and changing that conversation from just being about kill, 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 and our predator control to actually about that relationship between the possum and its original people, and how we do that appropriately and ethically, while still acknowledging that we need to get rid of it here and do everything we possibly can to keep it under control. So those are the sort of programs that we work in and places we work across. How did we get into Myrtle rust? Well, start pre-incursion, actually. In 2015, TTW alongside B3, working with LB, had a student whose purpose was to look at what a Myrtle rust incursion in Aotearoa could look like for our matakai, for our garden foods. And this was before there was any concentrated program in Aotearoa to be looking at Myrtle rust. It was warnings we had received from our Hawaiian and Aboriginal whānau that said how devastating it would be if they got here. And that was a very preliminary project there. In 2016, our co-founders met with Māori communities all across the country to talk about what they would like to be involved in the Myrtle rust response. And if this hypothetical pathogen managed to make it over here, how would they like to be engaged and how would they like to go about it? Almost like clockwork, immediately the next year Myrtle rust arrived, and all these communities we've been working with were already engaged and prepped on what it was, what it does, and how bad it could be. And so we then moved into facilitating conversations between them and government and agencies. In some situations, our communities were far more prepared for these conversations than the agencies were. And in some cases, the agencies didn't even know what Myrtle rust was. So that was very interesting. Later that year, we actually wound up getting in touch with the Royal Botanic Gardens Kew Millennium Seed Bank in the UK. So went above the crown to the bigger crown. And we do see the irony in that. And we wound up having seed drum collection kits from Kew diverted that were on their way to Haiti at the time to Aotearoa. And they distributed them among our community we were working with at the time. They also sent over a number of their trainers and upskilled our communities in seed collection and basic storage practices to quickly start collecting as the incursion was coming in. We then continued to distribute those seed drums through 2018, moving around the country, building them ourselves, and learning as much as we could from Kew so that we could take over that work here ourselves. That included sending a number of our money to the UK as well to do their 6 week training courses so they could come back as trained themselves. Since then, our communities have really taken the lead on that, and we've been able to step away from the actual collection work itself and work more in the protocol space. So what would a Māori seed collection and banking strategy look like? We have 2 documents that have come out from that recently, and they are both available on our website if you want to look at them. One of them is our seed expectations, and the other is our seed protocols. And these have 2 very different audiences. The statement of expectations for seed banking is designed for Māori to use when they are engaging with agencies or other collectors who are wanting to come and do work with them. It states what our boundaries are and what our expectations are and what we expect of the organisations engaging with us to be doing, saying, and understanding. It was actually prepared for us by Terry Young's law firm, so first look at that book recommendation, man, fantastic. Our protocols are formed a little bit differently. They are for those working with Māori. So if you are an agency or a government group or a researcher not working with Māori, the protocols outline what you should be doing and what you should be prepared to be asked and what you should expect to happen when you go to engage with these communities and what you should be expecting Māori to ask of you so that you aren't going in blind either. So we have 4 key focus areas that we work in for this. The first is people, so capability and training. In the last year, we have been engaging with Te Aroha Drummond, who is from Te Aroha. She was one of the original people we sent over to the UK to do the 6 week intensives, and she has now become our lead trainer and travels all over the country. So far just in North Island, but we do have another training plan for Ōtako in the far south that she'll be running soon. We also have our treaty and rights area, so that is more and more pressing and important as governments and politics change and swirl around here, as I'm sure everyone's well aware. But that is where our protocols and our expectations fall under. We also have our research focus. So there I've got my thesis, which I finished last year, which was looking specifically at the Kaupapa genus and how they may behave in seed storage off the back of some other research and why suggesting they might be a little bit different. We also have other research programs going on as well. Finally, we have infrastructure. So infrastructure is building these drum kits. For those of you who aren't familiar, they are literally plastic drums that Kew Millennium seed banks fill with everything you need to go out, collect seed, dry it, and store it in the most basic way possible. So they're really easy to pick up and figure out how to use them just out of the box. We use them as a part of our trainings that we run, and it has literally everything you need. It has silica gel for drying, cotton bags for collecting, they're airtight drums so you can do all your drying in the drum once you're taking the equipment out of it, and then you can even store your seeds in it afterwards. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about the state of our seeds as well. This is a research project done by Sarah Wise, among others, who was my supervisor at Canberra University for my thesis. So we basically did a evaluation of what we know about seed storability in Aotearoa. So as was touched on a little bit earlier, not all seeds can be stored equally. We have our orthodox seeds, which can be dried, stuck in a jar, put on a shelf, and fairly easily stored. And then as we move through our other categories of intermediate and recalcitrant, they become more and more difficult to store and require more and more advanced techniques like the cryopreservation work, which has been talked about as well. And so her project was to look at what we did know and about our seeds currently. We don't know much. Was the outcome of this literature review. There is a huge amount of species, likely due to the high endemism of our species here, that we just don't understand how to store it all. So if a new incursion came in tomorrow that targeted those, we wouldn't know whether or not they could be stored at all. So that research there needs to be done preemptively for other incursions. In terms of invasive species, Karen Vanderbilt, who I'm sure many of you read work on, based at Otari, Milton Bush at the moment, was doing a lot of the work on those species and have actually focused on their storage ability, and now she's working more in the cryo and long-term space there. But really cool work. You also look at the incidence of recalcitrants and orthodox across the country. Generally, those really hard to store seeds are more associated with the tropics, warmer climates, wetter climates, seeds that are least likely to have developed drying tolerance over their evolutionary history. And on the right here, we have a prediction based on what we do know of how that might play out across the country. And as you might expect, further north you go, higher incidence of recalcitrant species. Further south you go, lower incidence. Seeds are more happy to be dried and kept in a jar. So yeah, our latest work within my thesis work and the protocols we've been doing are an outline of some practical steps that can be made by seed collectors working in Aotearoa with Māori, trying to get more of the specifics of exactly what can be stored. One of the things that came out of that from some of our crematorium was the use of dark glass, for example. So it's pretty stock standard across a lot of seed banks around the world to use clear glass jars. There has actually been a move towards foil bags a lot more lately, but some of our crematorium expressed their concern about the mode or the energy of the seeds being properly cared for in glass jars. And that comes out of the normal space, those of you who are familiar with working in that area. So lots of little practical steps like that that can make Māori much more happy to be working in this space. This is also a picture from some of our trainings that Te Aroha has been running. The ones that we've run in the last year in Waikato, Whangarei, Motueka, Tauranga, and another one still planned for Ōtako, and hopefully if we can get some more money and people interested, we can run more in the future of that as well. So that's me. I'll keep it nice and short at the end of the day. We've also very recently changed our seed banking model at Te Whakamasaki. The previous name for it was Whakitaonga, and we were looking at new alternatives for a while. So our new name is Tūnataonga Order, and that's because we're actually looking at biobanking now, as opposed to just looking into seeds, as we have more and more pressures on our borders, including the likes of avian bird flu. It's becoming more and more obvious that we can't just focus exclusively on seeds. We need to look at storing material from a far wider range, be that fungal, bacterial, sperm, egg cells, and anything else that is of interest primarily to our communities. I just want to say thank you to the sponsors of some of this work. A good chunk of this protocol work was sponsored out of Te Pūkori and Ngā Rākataki as well. So,